What if the secret to building a brand that scales isn't your logo, your colors, or even your tagline, but something far more powerful? In this episode, I sat down with Joyce Shulman, serial entrepreneur, coach, and the woman behind multiple multi-million-dollar companies. And she dropped some serious brand building wisdom that every small and mid-sized business owner needs to hear. We're talking about the difference between having an audience and having a community, and why confusing the two may be costing you growth. I love her take on this. We're also digging into why your core values are either your brand's engine or just words on a wall collecting dust, and what it actually takes to build the kind of brand loyalty that makes customers bring their people, like coworkers, friends, family, peers, to you. Joyce has built brands in media, fitness, wellness, and even mahjong. And there's one thread that runs through all of them, which is real human connection, building a community. If you want to know how to build that into your brand in a way that actually drives business results, this is your episode. So let's go. Welcome to the Turbo Branding Show, where we help you ignite your growth by leveraging your brand to grow faster, easier, and more successfully. I'm your host, Sue Kirshner. Today, I'm talking with Joyce Shulman, serial entrepreneur and coach who has built several multi-million-dollar companies, and she's sharing why empathy and community aren't just feel-good concepts. They're the actual engine behind successful brands that grow. And if you're an entrepreneur with a business idea or in the process of building your company, this episode is going to help you turbocharge your brand. So Joyce, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah. You have so many different activities in your professional career that I am super excited to have you on today to share those experiences and insights with branding, building, selling businesses, all that. So, but first, before we jump in, let me tell my listeners a little bit more about you so they can be as impressed as I am. But Joyce Shulman is a serial entrepreneur, author, and professional coach who has founded, led, and exited multiple multi-million-dollar companies in consumer products, digital media, and wellness. And she's busy today coaching high-performing women and entrepreneurs at the intersection of professional success and personal well-being. Recently, Joyce co-founded Blue Moon Mahjong, a company on a mission to demystify Mahjong. She's a recovering attorney and has spent more than a decade practicing law in New York City and holds a JD cum laude from St. John's University School of Law, as well as a bachelor's degree in business management from the University of Maryland. She is also a TEDx speaker and author of 2 books on intentional living. What an exciting journey, and you still have more to come. Did I miss anything in that bio?
No, it sounds like I've been busy.
It does. I'm exhausted for you. All right, perfect. So before, let's jump into this deeper discussion on entrepreneurship, brand building. But before we do that, let's talk about your professional journey, as we just listed this, and how you came to build and sell multiple companies.
Well, I suppose the short answer to that is naivete. I've always been really entrepreneurial in my spirit. I started my first company in law school, which is not a good plan. I do not recommend it.
Wow.
That was but I've always had this desire to build things. And unlike a lot of lawyers, I loved practicing law. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the challenge and the clients and all the things. But I realized one day that my job as a litigator was to make other people's problems go away. And I wanted to create something. So, 20 plus years ago, my husband and I sold our apartment, quit our jobs, and started the first of our businesses. The first of which was a disaster. We lost everything. We almost lost our home.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. All the things, retirement funds, the proceeds of the sale of the apartment, everything. We dusted ourselves off, picked ourselves up, and started something new.
Okay.
Just been a journey ever since.
Wow, that's exciting. Well, one of the things that interests me, and I know you coach other women on this, is this idea, I've taken entrepreneur classes and I've taught entrepreneur classes and I help high school kids with a local, business incubator program and things like
Oh,
that.
that's really fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. But one of the things you hear is, gosh, when you're trying to come up with a business idea, look for the holes in your life, right? The gaps and things like that. And as I was looking through all the businesses that you've built and everything, it's a lot of that it's personal, right? It was something that you personally saw as an opportunity and jumped on that. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because you're one of the first people that I've known who's consistently built a business from that.
Oh, yeah. There are so many stories around this. I'm just trying to figure out where to even start. I guess I'll start with Macaroni Kid, which was actually our second business, but the one that scaled the biggest. At the time, I had my husband and I were running a different company, one of our media companies, which was doing well, doing about $5 million a year in revenue. So it was moving and grooving.
Yeah.
But I had this idea. At the time, I had two young kids, and we were always trying to figure out what's happening in our community. And we live in a community that offers a lot of opportunities for kids and families, but accessing that information. Now, you got to understand this was 18 years ago. So what I'm about to say, everybody's going to roll their eyes and be like, yeah, that was an idea.
Yeah.
But at the time, it really was. The question was, how do we get access to all of the events and activities happening in communities? So we built something called Macaroni Kid, and we scaled it to 550 communities across the US and Canada. And it was hyper local content answering the question, Mommy, what are we going to do today? Because at the time, my kids would come home from preschool and say, Mommy, what are we going to do today?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exciting. And it's funny because when we were talking before this episode, as the connections that we have with people we know and things we've done, I had an e-commerce business back in the day called Chocolate Cake Club and was trying to sell products to busy families so they could have more fun with their kids and things like that. And Macaroni Kid was definitely a place where I looked for advertising or a way to kind of submit content or to even use as research as a way to get a pulse on my target market. So, tell me a little bit about building that brand and what do you think made Macaroni Kid really just take off as a business?
A couple of pieces to that. The first is, and this goes, Sue, to your point a few minutes ago, we were answering a real need that people had. So that's the core, in my view, of a sustainable brand, is delivering value. And I know that sounds like such an oversimplification, and you can geek out on the colors of your brand and your logo and the look and feel. But at the end of the day, long-term growth and success comes from delivering some kind of meaningful value.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. The second piece of that, I would say, it was our incredible community of local publishers. And the third, which goes to the community piece, which is the through story of really everything I've built, is we did an extraordinary job of creating community among our team.
Okay.
And our individual local publishers truly became the heart and soul of the brand, the corporate values, what we were trying to do. They were so bought into our mission and our brand that as long as we set the course and empowered them to take it out to the world, that was how we did it.
Yeah. No, that's interesting because, it's almost like it's not a franchise model, but they face similar differences when you're bringing all these different local contributors on and who's going to run it in that particular area is the communication of the value, the communication of the core values, the vision, the mission, and all that becomes essential, right?
We talked in Macaroni Kid and in all of our business, we talk about our core values a lot. And I think that's a good reminder for entrepreneurs and people building teams. A lot of organizations will spend time really thinking through their core values, really thinking them through, and then they'll tuck them away someplace and leave them there.
Yeah.
You just have to keep circling back and reminding and finding ways to tie your core values to what's actually happening in the business. That's the magic, right? We are doing this because of this.
Yeah.
We are choosing not to do this because it doesn't align with this core value. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something that I think, a lot of companies and organizations, they write those core values down,
Yep.
and then that's it.
Yeah.
They don't explain what it means to the employees. It's like, oh, well, it's on a poster on the wall, or it's in the onboarding binder.
Exactly.
Things like that. But it's, no, what is that? I love it when organizations take those core values, but then put a story around it. It's like, so sure, you could have a core value of, we care about the customer. What does that mean? Because at company A and company B, they could be totally different things. So putting those stories around it, I think, is essential. So,
and continuing to that point, and then continuing to tell those stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you bring it to life, but gosh, you just got to keep talking about it.
Right. Absolutely. So I want to go back to what you just said, which is this community is the throughput through all of the businesses that you've built. So I know, well, I'm in the branding business, so I read all these articles about, how do you build your brand and relationships, and, community is always a big thing that people talk about now and everything. But I want to ask you, what does community mean to you? Because I've seen some organizations that are like, oh, well, I just don't have time to set up a Facebook group. And that's what they think community means,
Yep.
Right? So tell me a little bit about what community means to you, how you can leverage that, and then maybe what it looked like in each of your businesses, because your businesses are very different.
Oh, that's such a big question. Okay, well, let me start. And I think we chatted about this in our earlier call with what I think community is not.
Yes. All right.
So I draw a really big distinction, an important distinction between your community and your audience. So a lot of brands will refer to their social media followers as their community. A lot of brands will say they want to grow their email list because that's their community. That is not your community. That is your audience. Audience is really important. I don't want to diminish the value of reach and audience, but we got to stop conflating the two, because a community is when people come together towards a common goal or purpose. They find a way to communicate with one another towards that purpose. And they feel this sense of identity and trust. So there are elements, in my view, that a community needs. It does need a leader. Otherwise, it's just a group of people, and that's cool too. Yep. If you're talking about a community that's brand driven, you need a leader.
Okay.
You need trust, which is a core element of branding.
Absolutely. Building that relationship.
Yeah. You need a communication vehicle whereby people in the community can talk to one another. Because a community does not come to life until the members of the community are communicating with each other and feel that sense of affinity and that they're part of something. If you are just talking to them, if it's one-way communication, even if they're pinging you back, right? Even if they're going to DM you back, that's your audience. Okay. It's a community when they start coming together. Yeah. And you can make that happen in a variety of ways. But that's the difference. And what happens then from a branding standpoint is if people are excited about it, they will bring people they care about into the community.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a way, too, they almost do a better job of deciding who your ideal target is, because they will tell you, hey, if I'm in this community, this is who I want to hang out with, right? This is who I want to connect with. So that needs to be your audience.
Oh, I talk about this. I so agree with that. I talk about this all the time. Businesses spend a lot of time identifying the avatar for their key customer. And I really do think that some of that work is premature because doing that work in a vacuum is really hard.
Yeah.
You just you don't know.
Yeah.
Even AI doesn't know.
But it'll give you an answer.
And you know what? It'll probably give you a place to start.
Right.
Which is not bad.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. But, yeah. It's better than the vacuum.
It's better than the vacuum.
So, no, that's great. So I get it with Macaroni Kid. I saw how the community worked with that. You have all these parents who are talking to each other. And, like you said, it was answering that question of what am I going to do with my kid today? And people would come in and actually add insights and ideas. And that was lovely. And I had another woman on my podcast a while ago, Karen Covey, and she and Jackie Pilosoff does Divorced Girl Smiling, which is she built a community about people going through divorce and how hard that was. Part of that brand and the excitement around that brand is letting divorced people commiserate with each other and share advice and things like that. And that's community. So now how does that work with your other businesses?
So 99 Walks was a social fitness app focused on women, wellness, and walking. And community was everything there. We had a very, very close-knit community. People walked together. People took classes together. People showed up in an unbelievably active Facebook group together. We had built an app where people could communicate, build teams, all kinds of ways. In the fitness and wellness space, there's this really, I think it's unfortunate. I think there's something wrong with the way we're wired as human beings. I suppose it's like right and wrong in the sense that there's a ton of research that teaches us that we are more likely to show up for other people than we are for ourselves. I think that's bad wiring, right? Like we should.
Very bad wiring. Yes.
Right? We should be willing to show up for ourselves and commitments we make.
Yeah.
But it's just not the case. So creating that sense of community and frankly, accountability among our members. And then we brought them together from time to time on different kinds of in-person group walks and activations, live walks virtually, all kinds of things.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Mahjong is all about bringing people together at the table.
Yeah. So they can play, right?
So they can play.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So, okay, let's talk about how you coach entrepreneurs and high potential, professional women and things like that. You talked about how you coach at the intersection, and I'm trying to find the exact words here, but you coach at the intersection of personal and professional, or personal well-being and professional aspirations. What does that mean? I think I know as a woman entrepreneur, I kind of get it, but tell me what gap you saw and what that means to coach at that intersection.
Oh yeah, it's such a good question. Thank you for asking and framing it that way. I'll start with an expression that we've probably all heard, which is, it's not personal, it's just business. And I think we've probably heard that more from men than from women.
Yep.
But I think that's garbage. I think particularly entrepreneurs and high-performing women bring their whole selves to the work that they do.
Yes.
And that is an extraordinary power. It also puts you at a little bit of a risk, right? Because when things go bad, or when things don't go quite the way we want them to go, everybody, and I say that advisedly, everybody can spiral into self-doubt, self-questioning, imposter syndrome, what I call the 4 horsemen of limiting beliefs.
Okay.
Right? Scarcity, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough, all the things. So in order to really be the fullest expression of the personal and professional person you want to be, you've got to be paying attention to both sides of the house and really looking and appreciating, I guess is the best word, how the personal affects the professional.
Yeah.
And the professional affects the personal.
Right. Right. Do you ever, I'm going to ask you about your process in a minute about helping coach women in that particular intersection, but have you ever run across a situation, or maybe it was your experience, that as you grew the business, and like you said, as much as you try not to have it necessarily be everything about, the personal, It is. It's we put our heart and soul into things, and I went into mourning when my e-commerce business closed down and things like that, and it took me a year to get over it. But one of the things I've heard from other entrepreneurial women, especially, is as they built the company and it starts to take off into scale, how do you decouple the personal brand from now the company has to go on maybe without you, or maybe it has to be bigger than you? Have you ever had that situation where you've had to work with women on that? Where it's like, okay, you started here, you were the founder, it's a very important part of the core values in the brand, but now it needs to live as an entity on its own.
Very challenging.
Yeah.
And it's a different journey for different people.
Okay.
There's no one path. Some people start businesses that are very aligned to them personally, and they very much are the face of the business.
Okay.
Which makes it hard to do that. So
Right.
part of that journey early on, or early when you start thinking like, okay, this is going to grow bigger than me,
Yeah.
is you have to start empowering other people. You have to actually delegate.
Yeah.
You have to stop being the face of everything. And truthfully, and it's so refreshing to me when my clients are sort of willing to own this, there's an ego piece that goes with that.
Right.
You have to be okay not being the everything. And it's so interesting because some people and some clients are like, phew, you mean I don't have to do everything? And it's a relief to them. And some people, founders, find that really challenging because the business is so aligned with their identity. So I suppose that's not a clear answer to your question, other than to say it's a tricky journey.
It is a tricky journey. Yes. It is especially tricky. I mean, I've known, and it's something that comes up not only just with, the brand attributes, but the brand name. I know someone who built his business up and sold it, but he had his last name in the name of the business, and they wanted that name, and he lost the right to use his own last name in any other business that he might found later. And it's not something you think about on day one, right?
Exactly.
When you're trying to do that, but something to caution for. So tell me, since you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, what are some of the top mistakes you see entrepreneurs making today, whether it's related to branding or not, but like, what do you think entrepreneurs need to know from you?
This probably is just coming from a couple of conversations I've had recently with a couple of clients. It's really hard. Building a business, it's hard.
Right.
And we live in a culture that is entrepreneurship. I would honestly say, if you can do something else, do something else. It's very hard. I often tell the story. I wrote myself, this was during the Macaroni Kid days.
Yeah.
I wrote myself a letter of resignation and I left it on my desk for the next morning because I was done. I was done. It's just too hard. Now, that doesn't mean every business is really hard and depleting, but I can pretty much promise you that if you want to build something of substance, you are going to encounter a whole lot of challenges along the way, and you got to kind of be up for that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you need help. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Oh yeah, that's a really good segue to, I'm thinking of one particular client.
Yeah.
And God bless, she is willing to invest in hiring the best talent she can and the best help that she can get. And her work product, what's coming out of the building of this business, it's at an extraordinary level. So that willingness to, and there's like two sides of that coin, right? Like you've got to invest in great help and you got to be scrappy.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, so let me ask you a little bit more. You put together this process when you coach entrepreneurs, but tell me a little bit about the process and how you got to the point where it's like, well, this is what people need. This is what's going to help them get through the hard parts, as you've just talked about.
Yeah, I have not a super formal framework.
Mm-hmm.
I have one particular, my new book is focused on a particular framework and strategy I have for building a business, which is my 10 touch strategy. It's what I've used to build everything. It's simple but not easy, I'm fond of saying, but essentially following a very particular framework and approach, you reach out to 10 people a week and you invite them to a conversation focused on the goal at hand. So I do a fair bit of work with clients and groups around the 10 touch strategy. So that is definitely an underpinning of what I teach and coach, but it's maybe 10%. Because it really is about meeting my clients where they are and understanding what their particular opportunities are and roadblocks are and goals. And I think that's an interesting reflection on that is not everybody's entrepreneurial goals and dreams are the same.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's a really important question to ask entrepreneurs and for entrepreneurs to ask themselves, what are you really looking to do here?
Right. Right. Exactly. So let's build on that a little bit about entrepreneurs, because I've met people who are like, oh, I'm going to go start my own business. It's like, really? Why? Because I don't see that you have that skill set. But then as I sit back, I'm like, well, what is the skill set, right? For being a good entrepreneur? Have you seen, are there certain characteristics or attributes or how you work with entrepreneurs on, you know what, these are the leadership skills that you are going to need to build this business or even to build a brand?
I don't think that there's not one group of skills, talents, natural things. In order to be a successful entrepreneur, you need a lot of things.
Yeah.
You need a lot of things. You need to be pretty self-motivated. You need to be just the right amount of naive.
Yes.
You need to be honest about what you're good at and what you're not good at. You need to be willing to our point earlier, hire the team and the people and the support to fill in the gaps of the things that you're not good at. You need to avoid the trap of getting so caught up, such a cliche, but it's true, of working in the business, not on the business.
Yeah.
You need all of those things, but you need them at different times. So what's the key driver? It's this entrepreneurial spark of I really want to build something or I really see a problem that needs solving. I can make the world better. I can help people if I solve this, if I bring them this.
Yeah. Well, that takes a certain amount of, and I want to kind of finish on this point, is for both building community and building a brand and having the savvy to figure out this is something that's a problem and I can fix it for other people. You need empathy for that, don't you? I mean, is that something that you talk about with your clients at all?
I wouldn't use the word empathy as much as I would clarity and a certain amount of objectivity.
Okay.
Because I don't know that we're all solving emotional problems, but maybe we are. I've just never thought about it in that way. Like I'm thinking right now about a specific client who is building something that my immediate reaction when you said that, I was like, I don't think that's empathy driven. But then to your point, right? Because I'm not a branding expert. I'm not a branding person.
Yeah.
So as I'm thinking about this particular client's business, I realize that if I were to look at it through a branding lens, the question would then become, what is the emotional challenge that her potential clients are facing? And there is an emotional piece of that.
Right.
I just don't immediately go to that because I don't see things through your lens.
Yeah, no, but that's okay because,
Yep.
it's the end result still ends up being there, right? So, like when you built community around Macaroni Kid or even around 99 Lives, it's because there was a social aspect. There was an emotional aspect to why they wanted community, right? Whether it was they were lonely, whether it was they wanted affirmation on I'm a good parent, I need to be doing things with my kids, and and like you said, once you build that community and people start connecting with each other, then you're giving them the gift of connection. You're giving them the gift of friendship in some cases and things like that. So, but yeah, but whether you identify it as having empathy or not, I definitely think everything you've done gets to an emotional bond or an emotional connection that people are looking for.
I
So
think
I
that's
think
right.
that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's right. I appreciate that. Thank you. And if we look at it through that lens, it's true because I start every business with this idea of truly what I believe that we as human beings need more of right now, perhaps than ever before, is human connection.
Absolutely.
I've said this so many times. I don't think we were meant to raise our families and to be living at the end of a long driveway behind a white picket fence. Like we were meant to live with our cousins and our aunties and our nieces and our nephews and our kids. And like they were all supposed to be playing in the dirt together.
Yeah.
And that's not how we're living. So how can I create things? And this is why it doesn't matter what the business is. How can we create things
Yeah.
that give people the opportunity to form those kinds of connections? Because at the end of the day, that's everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And people definitely reward and trust and work with organizations that give them that opportunity. So I
Yep.
love that. I love that. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. So I love talking with you, Joyce. This has been great. And like I said, I am so impressed by all of the things that you have done, the hard things to create. And I definitely admire that. So I will ask you, and you don't have to answer, but I will ask you if there is a small or mid-sized business that's doing a great job with their brand that you see that you would like to give a shout out to, because I love to honor businesses that focus on it and do a great job.
So you warned me this was coming.
I know.
And these are the kinds of things that I'm usually really good at off
Yes.
the top of my head.
Yeah.
And there are so many brands out there, small, medium, and large,
Yeah.
that are doing a really good job. And sitting in the hot seat, I can't come up with
I
a
can't come
single
up with
one.
them. That's fine. That's fine. Not a big deal at all. It's funny. I was shocked. I had asked someone, and it wasn't even on the podcast, but I had asked someone at a specific time when I had met him. I'm like, "Hey, what's a small brand that you just absolutely loved?" And it surprised me. His answer was, "Well, my dry cleaner." I'm like,
Oh, I
"What?"
love that.
And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "My dry cleaner." He goes, "Because every time I walk in, they know who I am. They call me by name. They've memorized my phone number because that's how they find my ticket and all this kind of stuff. It's always ready when they say it's going to be ready, And he's like, "I love that consistency and the personalization." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that is cool.
Yep. Yep.
Excellent. All right,
Now you've got me
good.
going on all of my local businesses too. And I feel terrible that nothing's coming immediately to mind,
That's
but I'm going to
fine.
keep thinking about it.
That is absolutely fine. You can always send me a name later and we'll
I
give it
will.
a shout on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. But anyway, Joyce, thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing your experiences about building a business and building a brand. But if any of our listeners would like to learn more about your entrepreneurial coaching or the Mahjong business that you're working on, or even any workshops you might have coming up, how can they connect with you?
All the things. So you can find my coaching work at joyceshulman.com, and you can find Blue Moon Mahjong at bluemoonmahjong.com. And of course, LinkedIn is probably the best social channel to find me. I'm not super active on social these days.
Okay, perfect. And we will have all of those links in the show notes. So let me just say thank you once again. I appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you. It was really a pleasure.
Excellent. Before you go, I want to leave you with 2 quick exercises inspired by today's conversation, because I want to do more than inform you. I want to inspire and move you to action. So grab a pen and a few minutes of quiet, or grab your leadership team and try these exercises together. The first exercise is an audience versus community audit. Take a look at how your business currently engages its customers or followers. Ask yourself honestly, is this an audience or a community? Are your customers talking to you or talking to each other? If it seems to be an audience, brainstorm ways or a way you could facilitate peer-to-peer connection. It could be a private Facebook or Slack group, a referral challenge, or a live event. I have one client that runs a monthly peer group so customers can learn how to improve their businesses from each other. And guess what? It builds loyalty for my client who's hosting that meeting. Take one step towards turning passive followers into an active community. I think you'll really be surprised by the results. And the second exercise is a core values reality check. So pull out your core values wherever they're written down and now ask, when did I last tell a story that brought one of these values to life for my customers or for my team? If you can't remember, that's your sign. As the founder, owner, or CEO of your organization, you are the brand steward. It's your responsibility to communicate the brand and the core values. And that's consistently, not just once. So this week, share one real story with your employees and customers, whether that's in a newsletter, on social, or in a team meeting, that shows what one of your values looks like in action. It's not a definition or a bullet point in a binder. Tell them a story so they can see what it means. And in the future, at another meeting, ask them to tell you one. And thank you, listener, for joining us for this episode of the Turbo Branding Show. I hope you've been inspired to ignite your growth by leveraging your brand. And if you enjoyed the show, I would love it if you could help me build a strong brand following for the show. Please share this episode and be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. Thank you, and stay tuned for our next episode.